Fact 1. One fun shading truth is that consistently, Pantone picks a particular tone to be Shade of the Year. This convention started in 2000, with the shading cerulean blue, and consistently from that point forward has had its own exceptional shading. For 2020, that shading is a shade of blue called Classic Blue. The executive director of Pantone, Leatrice Eisman, portrayed the shade as instilled with a profound reverberation. Pantone 19-4052 Classic Blue gives a mooring establishment. An unlimited blue suggestive of the immense and limitless night sky, urges us to look past the conspicuous to extend our reasoning, provoking us to think all the more profoundly, increment our viewpoint and open the progression of correspondence. Fact 2. While shading can have mental, subliminal impacts on us, for example, memory maintenance, hues likewise have emblematic implications. Some imagery is self-evident, red methods stop, though different implications are less applicable to regular daily existence. Blue can represent trust and reliability. Imagery additionally shifts incredibly across various societies. In Western culture, white regularly speaks to honesty, harmony, and virtue, and is frequently utilized in weddings. Notwithstanding, in China, white is related with death and grieving and frequently worn to memorial services. Shading imagery isn't concrete inside a solitary culture, as affiliations can change after some time. Envision an infant shower. Everything is generally pink or blue, contingent upon the sexual orientation of the infant. Truth be told, for quite a bit of history, this was not the situation. Until the mid-1900s, neither one of the colors was related with one sexual orientation or the other. The two people sported blue and pink. At that point, apparel stores started suggesting that young men be wearing pink, and young ladies be wearing blue. It is accepted that these organizations basically wanted to build deals, by urging guardians to buy a whole new arrangement of garments for another child. Beforehand, little fellows and young ladies were dressed the same, and it was handy to utilize a similar arrangement of garments starting with one youngster then on to the next. Afterward, during the 1940s, things were flipped as blue turned into the standard for young men, and pink for young ladies. After some time, these affiliations stuck are as yet ordinary today. Fact 3. It's conspicuous how shading influences our feeling of vision, however perhaps less clear that it can have significant inner mind impacts too. Shading brain research is the investigation of how hues influence an individual's feelings, musings, and even conduct. Marking is a field where shading brain research is regularly utilized. Organizations utilize explicit hues to impact purchasers. For instance, red and yellow can really invigorate an individual's hunger, and cause them to feel hungry. It is anything but a happenstance that numerous natural pecking orders have consolidated these hues into their logos. Also, shading can even improve consideration and memory. A trial by Frank Farley and Alfred Grant addressed whether shading or high-contrast mixed media introductions would influence subjects' memory. Their outcomes indicated that the subjects did, indeed, show better memory of the shaded introductions. Other research has additionally scanned for viable utilization of shading in supporting Alzheimer's patients, individuals with mental imbalance, and individuals with dyslexia. Fact 4. The rainbow is regularly used to speak to the entire range of obvious shading, yet fuchsia doesn't really happen in the rainbow. In least complex terms, the rainbow comprises of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, and in a specific order. In any case, maroon would be somewhere close to the two parts of the bargains red and violet. Hues are frequencies of light that are typically seen dependent on which frequencies are assimilated or reflected off of an item. On the off chance that an item retains all frequencies aside from green, at that point green light is reflected and the article gives off an impression of being green. On the off chance that two frequencies are reflected all the while, the eye will locate the normal shading between those two frequencies. For instance, if the item reflects blue and yellow light, the article will seem green since green is somewhere between blue and yellow on the range. Things being what they are, if both red and violet the furthest edges of the range are reflected, how might the article show up? In fact, the shading green is arranged equitably among red and violet, however green is clearly a vastly different shading than both of those. To redress, the mind basically transforms the range into a circle, or wheel, with maroon shutting the hole among red and violet. So while fuchsia is a lot of a genuine shading, it is extraordinary by coming up short on its own frequency and spot in the rainbow. Fact 5. Fears are known to be solid, unreasonable feelings of trepidation that individuals may feel toward explicit triggers. Regular fears incorporate arachnophobia, dread of bugs, acrophobia, dread of statures, and claustrophobia, dread of encased spaces, yet numerous other bizarre fears exist too, for example, chromophobia. Chromophobia is the dread of hues, and there are likewise explicit fears for explicit hues. One model is xanthophobia, the dread of the shading yellow. Like different fears, chromophobia can cause outrageous nervousness, alarm assaults, sporadic heartbeat, and queasiness. Foundations for this bizarre dread are thought to incorporate PTSD or partner a specific shading with something amazingly unsavory. Fact 6. How often has somebody approached you for your preferred shading? Indeed, even online tests frequently offer this conversation starter. Everybody has their own top choice, and now and again that most loved can change after some time. Along these lines, it might be intriguing to discover that by and large, one shading appears to stand apart as the most top pick: blue. Indeed, even as ahead of schedule as 1941, considers have seen shades of blue as favored over the various hues, and that hasn't changed in later investigations, either. In 2011, Scott Design Inc. led 2 reviews to locate the most and least well-known hues. Blue was the most well-known, with 27% of votes, while green came in runner-up with 18% of votes. Simultaneously, earthy colored won for being the least most loved shading. Just 3.5% of members expressed that blue was their least most loved shading. At that point, in 2017, the paper organization G.F. Smith propelled an online survey that permitted members to choose their preferred tint. After 30,000 individuals from 100 nations cast their votes, the triumphant shading was declared to be a shade of greenish-blue, presently named Mars green. While it is named green, there has been banter about whether it is really a shade of green or a shade of blue, as it unquestionably contains traces of both. Notwithstanding, unmistakably blue and green are very pop. Fact 7. Indeed, even in English, the jargon and order of hues has changed after some time. Numerous individuals most likely accept that the citrus organic product was named orange because of its lively shading, yet it was entirely reverse way around. Until the late 15th century, the shading orange didn't have its own name. Rather, it was just alluded to as yellowish red, or a shading among red and yellow. At the point when brokers started to carry oranges to Europe from Asia, the splendidly shaded natural product set up orange as its own shading. Initially, the organic product was named naranga in Sanskrit, and this became naranj in French, which at that point became orange in English. Oranges turned into a descriptor for different things that come in their brilliant tint. One may state a jewelry the shade of oranges, or an orange-hued leaf, for instance. In the end, orange took on a subsequent definition and turned into the name of that yellowish-red shading. Fact 8. Despite the fact that there are such a significant number of tones, tints, and shades, individuals can generally separate and arrange them. Red is a shade of red, blue and green are both cool hues. Notwithstanding, a few societies have different methods of depicting hues, in the event that they portray them by any means. In the 1970s, analysts Paul Kay and Brent Berlin teamed up with teachers from the Summer Institute of Linguistics to assemble information on shading jargon over the world. These ministers would show shading chips to individuals in inborn networks, and request that they depict each shading. At times, for example, the Kandashi language, the network individuals didn't have explicit names for each shading. Rather, they may depict a yellow chip as tsuyaro, which alludes to a yellow-hued flying creature. Significantly additionally fascinating is that they didn't separate hues in a similar way as the Western Roy G. Biv model. For example, they utilized a similar word, kavabana, to portray all shades among green and purple. In English, green, blue, and purple are viewed as independent classes, with significantly more words to depict the numerous shades of each. Fact 9. Plainly, there are a surprising measure of hues obvious to the natural eye. Yet, shouldn't something be said about hues that are not noticeable? The unimaginable, or illegal, hues are conjectured to be a blue-yellow blend, and a red-green blend that natural eyes can't see. In the eye, there are neurons that are actuated after observing red or yellow. In any case, the non-attendance of red or yellow shows that green or blue is available. Like a light switch, they can't be both here and there simultaneously, and in this manner can't see both red and green, or blue and yellow, in a similar space. Basically, red and green counteract one another, while blue and yellow offset one another. In 1983, researchers Hewitt Crane and Thomas P. Antonita tried to do the incomprehensible, and figure out how to see these prohibited hues. Utilizing eye-following innovation, they held red/green, and blue/yellow, striped paper consistent before volunteers' eyes. The volunteers expressed that the lines between each shading started to blur away, as the hues converged into one, new shading. Evidently, these new hues were exceptional to the point that the volunteers couldn't name or portray them. Fact 10. In the event that somebody had asked you what number of hues exist, what might you say? Indeed, for reasons unknown, the natural eye can for the most part observe around 10 million hues. This is because of a large number of exceptional cones in the eye, which can identify shade. At times certain cones may glitch, and this causes partial blindness. Different occasions, an individual may have tetrachromacy, which implies they have an additional sort of cone and can see up to 100 million hues. Be that as it may, on the grounds that we can see every one of these hues doesn't really imply that we have names for them all. Pantone as of now has 2,678 named hues in their illustrations plan assortment, while Crayola has only 120 diverse pastel hues. In any case, that is still a great deal of hues. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.